Chapter 13, continuing on. Let's go on to page 349. Know 3 to 4 features of green buildings. And so we have this nice picture here that talks to you about water efficient sinks and toilets, landscaping with native plants so you don't have to water as much and have as much fertilizer or pesticide. E-windows provide insulation, deciduous vegetation where it shades you in the summer and the leaves fall off in the winter so you can get sunlight. PV cells, which are our solar panels, we actually call them photovoltaic cells. So make sure you know 3 or 4 of these features of a green building. Now we have a positive and negative chart for cities. So we have some good and some bad. Okay, so one of the good things is that you have higher population density, which gives you more intact ecosystems outside the city. For example, okay, so Japan is a really good example of this. In Japan, they purposely want Tokyo to be really big. And Tokyo is really big with lots of city centers and lots of different parts of the city. So 35% of Japanese live in Tokyo. It's a huge, huge, huge city. But what that does is that they're trying to avoid sprawl. And so what do people do? Well, they take the train out and they enjoy pristine nature. And it also leaves forests for ecosystem services. What else is good about cities? Well, better medical care is one, sometimes better education, sometimes worse. Like, it depends on the city. So you have your universities in cities, which is good, but some city schools are not very good either. It just depends on the city. But you have efficient public services. So compared to a rural area, your city is going to have better electricity and plumbing and sewer systems than a rural area. On the other hand, sometimes those can get degraded in a big city, like Los Angeles has problems sometimes, but they do have efficient water and electricity, so that's good. So some negative parts of cities, ecologically, it's a resource sink, and so do know the definition of that. Which is basically a city takes resources from outside the city into the city. So a city's not producing much food or water, so it has to get those resources from other places, and that's what a resource sink is. You have more pollution, and so we have different kinds. We have air pollution, water, noise, light, and this affects the poor more because in a lot of your cities that are not revitalized, you have a lot of poor people that can't afford to move to the suburbs. So we have kind of a mix of rich and poor in cities, and so the poor are affected more by the pollution because they can't escape it. And so this becomes an environmental justice issue. Cities are also heat islands. So heat island, basically, cities are hotter because of concrete that absorbs the heat during the day and releases it at night. And then you have a bigger eco footprint due to wealth. So in general, now there are poorer parts of the city, and so we have this juxtaposition between poor and rich in a city. But in general, people in a city tend to have more wealth than rural areas. We're not talking the suburbs, because technically suburbs are part of a city. So we're talking mainly about urban versus rural, not the suburbs, okay? So an urban area tends to have more wealth than a rural area. And so when you have more wealth, you tend to have bigger eco footprints. Okay, so we have just some negative health impacts here on page 351. So noise pollution causes stress for people. Light pollution blocks your stars and can prevent sleep. So stars is not a health issue, blocking the stars, it's just kind of annoying, but it can block sleep, which is a health issue. On this page, know the figure and caption for the urban heat island effect, and it talks again about how cities are warmer than the surrounding area, and that's mainly because of concrete and other services that radiate heat at night. Also, your industry, your buildings radiate heat as well. Now, on the AP test, when they've asked this question before, so a few years ago, maybe about 10 years ago, they asked about why are cities hotter. They did not accept cars letting off heat. So just mainly focus on the concrete absorbing the heat and letting it off. So that was a better answer that they accepted on the FRQ. So just be aware of that. They also didn't accept people letting off heat either. All right, I think this is the end of sticky notes for chapter 16, and so that's all you need to know for, chapter 13.